Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined today by Andrew Erickson and by Chris Welsh. We are talking wide receivers to buy or sell. These can be buy lows, they can be buy highs, they can be sell lows, they can be sell highs. We're talking all about wide receivers here on today's show. Let's dive right in. And Welsh, we're going to dive in with the player that we would trade almost anything for, brought to you by Uber Eats. This week, that player for you is Tyreek Hill. Why?
Because he's Tyreek Hill. I don't
easy,
care.
Done. All right, that's the whole segment.
That's it. Exactly. Unfortunately, that's it feels like, of the analysis with Tyreek Hill, because whether it's Skylar Thompson, whether it's Huntley, it almost doesn't matter while still obviously mattering. Of course, like last week, things kind of tick back down. But one of the big main points of this is the panic that is surrounding Tyreek Hill. Because this is like that first run that we've had in some time where it's not like a Patrick Mahomes or a Tua, and however you feel about that. And we've got a worse quarterback situation. But Tyreek Hill, 2 straight 1,700-yard seasons, 4 straight 1,200 or more yard seasons. Over the last 4 seasons, he has had 44 touchdowns receiving, which is an absurd number. So only 2 times last year did Hill have under 7 receptions in a game. He has now done that twice this year. The downtick of what we saw, at least in week 3, is, and overall in the season, he's down about 10% on his routes run per drop back, which is, again, this anomaly, which I'm willing to say doesn't continue as far as the trend goes. Because at the end of the day, this is like, there's a laziness to some of this analysis. This team will not win games if the ball is not in Tyreek Hill's hands. And that's why I give you the numbers of what he's done in the past. That's why I tell you last year he didn't have less than 7 receptions more than twice in a game, because you can't win games without getting the ball in Tyreek Hill's hands. No matter who the quarterback is, it doesn't matter. It is McDaniel's job to get him the ball in whatever fashion. Now, the downtick is if they don't have the air yards are kind of down overall. He's currently, or at least in week 3 with Skylar Thompson, he had a 6.8 ADOT, Tyreek Hill did, which is not great. 15% target share last week, not good. And he was only a 16% first read. Those are all wild anomalies that do speak to the quarterback, but I think it also speaks to the game planning. I think Huntley is going to make this team better. Everyone was panicked before week 4 with Tyreek Hill. They are more panicked now with the uncertainty of this situation. But what I do know is in these bad quarterback situations, they will simplify it to the quarterback. Look at what Malik Willis just did. Obviously Jordan Love's coming back, but Malik Willis into week 2, into not being in that offense for too long, they were able to simplify it, get the ball in the hands of playmakers to start making some of those big plays. It's a fever pitch of concern with Tyreek Hill. I am absolutely buying it. He went from wide receiver 1 down to 12 last week. He's probably going to be in a perceived outside the top 15. So without all the cool underlying stuff to tell you about all the reasons you have to buy, there is too much uncertainty at quarterback. But the one thing that is certain is Tyreek Hill is an elite fantasy player, and it is an ultimate buy low opportunity right now.
So that's why Welsh would trade almost anything for Tyreek Hill. That was this week's Uber Eats Player of the Week. Get almost anything for Game Day delivered with Uber Eats, the official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. By the way, Welsh, last week you picked Terry McLaurin for this player, and that looks really good now with 100 yards and a touchdown in that Monday night game. So you're on fire with these picks.
We'll try to keep it going. And by the way, too, I'm glad you went with it. The funny thing was when you asked me the question and I go like, it's Tyreek Hill. Sometimes, like Uber Eats, things are just simple. And it's a simple thing to do, to go buy Tyreek Hill without all of the fluff and the analysis. Go buy Tyreek Hill. Let's do it. Let's do it together.
It's so obvious. It's one of those, just don't overthink it. Didn't you pick Marvin Harrison Jr. in this segment after week 1 too?
I did. You know what? My streak is on the line. Yeah. I do have. Yeah, wide receivers have been pretty good for me so far. So I got 2 straight good buys. Last week, my sell worked out pretty well. So we're trying to make it 3. Is everybody? Worm is co-signing with me. Erickson, are you coming with me?
Oh yeah, I'm coming with you. 100%.
Who else is coming with me? 100%. All right, keep going. Let's hear it. To say how smart.
Yeah. What?
Say how smart I am.
Why do you like Tyreek Hill?
Oh, why do I like? Look, it's the process, baby. when guys suck, when they're elite receivers and they have horrible games and they're dropping passes and Skylar Thompson's your quarterback, this is what happens. But he's not going to continue to be horrible. They're going back at home this week. Yes, you want to buy low on. Again, this is always the process when it comes to wide receivers. The position by nature is more volatile, so you're going to see more up and down performances. That's why you always want to buy after they have games like this, where they're just not targeted enough, they're not involved enough in the game plan. I mean, McDaniel's going to go back to the drawing board, like, let's get 15 targets for Tyreek Hill, right? That's going to be the game plan. So I think that this is a very sharp play, and there's definitely panic with Tyreek Hill back-to-back bad games, because including the game where Tua got hurt. So I think that this is the prime opportunity to buy low on a player of Hill's caliber.
Can I ask you guys both this just really quick? Because this is a tough concept. We talked about it on the Discord show, fantasypros.com/chat, for people if they want to check out the Discord. We do some podcasts on there. Joe Pisapia Bogman and I talked about this. There's this other little thing that's floating out there with Tyreek Hill, is that Tua can come back. And I know it's dicey because we really don't know. Joe was leaning on the idea that we don't see Tua this year, and maybe at all. I tend to believe it was a very big safety net idea of putting him on the IR, so he can't even conceptualize getting into practices and playing and stuff like that. How important, do you think it is that Tua comes back for Tyreek Hill value? And B, do you think he comes back? I'm curious what both of you think about this.
Erickson?
I guess I can start. I think that he probably will come back. I think that, he's someone that's discussed in the past about potentially retiring, but obviously that ended up not being the case. He wouldn't come back and play. He was concussion free all of last year, obviously dealing with the concussion now. But something that I kind of was surprised at when I was just watching the Seahawks and Dolphins game this week was Tua was on the sidelines, right? You think that someone that was suffering this major injury would be kind of like secluded away from the team, really contemplating like, how am I going to address the rest of my career? But no, he's right there with his teammates, supporting and cheering them on. So that gives me, at least, again, I don't know the medical side of things. Obviously, it seems like he's going to be out at least the next 3 weeks, being placed on the injured reserve. But I'm definitely more optimistic about him returning at some point this season than I was originally when the injury initially happened. I know that a lot of people gave their takes about, I would retire if I was Tua. Well, you're not Tua, right? This is his life, and it's his decision to do what he wants to do with his NFL career. And if he wants to continue playing, then more power to him. And if he wants to be with his teammates and play quarterback at the NFL level, win a Super Bowl, that's what he wants to do. I think that he's going to try. So I am definitely more optimistic about Tua coming back. I know that the thing that my only reservation is the Dolphins' schedule in the second half of the year is really bad. And they traditionally are the team that when the weather turns colder, the offense isn't nearly as hot as it is in September and October. But again, we just need to get better quarterback play than we saw from Skylar Thompson. And Tua can definitely deliver on that.
They have a Pro Bowl quarterback
That's
in the
true
quarterback
too.
room right now who is healthy.
I can't believe he wasn't active.
Why do we need
for
Tua
last
back
week's
when
game.
Tyler Huntley is in the building?
I mean, how hard is it to know the playbook if it's throw the ball to Tyreek? See Tyreek run, Tyreek throw a ball. Like, throw a ball to Tyreek.
To answer your question, Welsh, I think obviously Tua coming back would help immensely, if he's back to normal. I kind of hope he doesn't. I totally agree with you, Erickson, that like it is his decision. Like, nobody can make the decision besides him. Like, just personally, like I get scared watching him play. Like, I felt that even prior to this most recent concussion. And like I have followed like his brother's college career very closely because Talia was at University of Maryland. Like, the family is awesome. Like, he seems by all accounts to be like this wonderful human being. So like, I want the best for him long term. And for me, that is not playing, but that is not my choice. Obviously, like, that is 100% his choice, and I'll fully support him and hope that he stays healthy if he's back on there. And I will cheer like crazy for him if he's on there, because I think he's overcome a lot and is a good quarterback. So like, I hope he's back out there if he can stay healthy, but I kind of hope he's not, just for his own sake. I do think he will try to come back this year, though. Like, I think from everything he has said and everything they have done, it seems like the plan, at least according to him, is that as soon as he's cleared, he'll be back out there. Whether or not that's the smart decision, nobody can answer that. But it seems like that's what the goal is. Is that what you are kind of feeling, Welsh? That you said you disagreed with Joe on this?
Well, I disagree with Joe that like that he's not going to not come back. I think he is going to come back.
Yeah.
I'm 100% with Erickson here. Like he says he wants to come back. He's on the field with his team. He's still involved, but it's also not part of my thesis or analysis of wanting to buy Tyreek Hill. If Tua doesn't come back, that's okay. I can't watch that stuff. I can't watch those hits. It is brutal. So like from a human perspective, like, yeah, I kind of don't want to see him come back either, but it is his choice and he'll be out there and da. But that's not a part of me needing to buy him. It's just a cherry on top. It's a little thing that's floating out there for, I don't know why anyone would be super uncomfortable, but I can't tell you the amount of Tyreek Hill questions we got in week 3 on the Discords. It was like, guys, I'm really worried. Would you take this? Would you do this? That's only going to be doubled this week now. So I want all of the Tyreek Hill, but there are other pieces to this where it's like people are looking at Skylar Thompson. Huntley's going to come back. That's better. Tua might be back. Like there are positives down the road outside of just being like, hey, by the way, he's been one of the most dominant receivers, 44 touchdowns over the last 4 years. Like we're going to be okay with it. But yes, I do believe that we will see Tua this year. I'm not sure it's going to be after this 4-week IR stint because you're probably going to have to like really ease in, and frankly, they might have to change some of the game planning about how they approach as far as hits go. But I do believe we will see him.
Erickson, who's your wide receiver to buy?
Jayden Reed, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. So the last 2 weeks have been not great because Malik Willis has been the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Even though they have won a bunch of games, they're 2-0 with Malik Willis. They haven't really unlocked the passing game with him at quarterback, but that's to be expected. The expectation is we're going to see Jordan Love return to this offense. And in week 1, when Jayden Reed and Jordan Love were on the field together, Jayden Reed was the number 1 receiver. He was leading the NFL in receiving yards after week 1. And even this past week, Jayden Reed was the most targeted receiver for the Green Bay Packers. 4 of 6, 50 yards, 32% target share. He leads the team in target share through 3 games. And there's I think there's still a buying opportunity for Jayden Reed because all these Packers receivers, their production has been suppressed due to the fact that Malik Willis has been the quarterback the last 2 weeks. They just haven't, it's not because they're bad. It's just because the game plan is called for, we're going to run the football. Like that's what this offense needs to win these games. They're 2-0. But we look at the upcoming schedule, Vikings, Rams, Cardinals, teams that can put points up on the board. So I think that this is going to force the Packers to be a little bit more pass happy, get Jordan Love back at quarterback. And Jayden Reed was one of my favorite players last year. He was a rookie that broke out, and all he's done in 3 weeks is be productive. And especially the past 2 weeks when the quarterback play has been very questionable. So I think Jayden Reed, you're just buying on a super talented guy that's breaking out again in year 2 after he broke out his rookie year. So I like him short term and I like him long term. So that's why I think he's a great buy low target. And maybe he's not a buy low, maybe he's a buy high. I don't really care. I just want Jayden Reed on my team because I think that we've seen enough from this Packers rotation where Romeo Doubs runs all the routes. Christian Watson and Dontavian Wicks are kind of rotating on that X side. But Jayden Reed, the number 1 slot receiver and the guy that I think is going to lead the team in targets when it's all said and done. So I like Jayden Reed the most.
Wide receiver 26 in our rest of season rankings, according to half PPR. That's moved up a bit in the last week or so. Is that about right for you, Erickson?
I think it's a little low for me. He was such a stud as a rookie, and he's already checking off all the boxes in year 2, right? Why not Jayden Reed? Exactly. So I think for me, it's probably a little bit low. I don't know exactly where I have him in my rest season ranking. It's probably a little bit higher than that. I think I may have him in my top 24, but he's definitely by far my highest ranked Packers receiver and the guy I have the most confidence going after in a trade.
Welsh, what do you think about Jayden Reed?
I think this was a great call. This is the guy. This is the guy that they'll use out of the backfield. They'll put in the slot. They'll have him go deep. I mean, kind of like the Tyreek Hill analysis to a much smaller degree. Jayden Reed's a guy that you got to get the ball in his hands, no matter who the quarterback is. And now you have a really good quarterback that's going to be able to get the ball going deep. I've never loved, and I don't love the rotational thing they do where they like pair these guys up. It's like, why do we not see way more 3 and 4 wide receiver sets? And we'll just get like a 2 wide receiver set where it's, Romeo Doubs and Watson, and then it'll be Wicks and Reed. I just wish they would get Reed out there more, but he is the playmaker. He's one of those guys that you could sell me on a low snap percentage and be like, I don't know, it's not good. Look at the snaps. But it's like the snaps and route runs to the targets. Like he's the guy when he's on the field, they want to get him the ball. So I absolutely love this one. And the offense for the Packers is only going to look better when Jordan Love is out there. And that means more distribution as far as targets go and Jayden Reed out of the backfield. If you've got safeties back because you've got those wide receivers with Jordan Love and you have Jayden Reed coming in the slot and end arounds, it's only going to make it more efficient. So yeah, I love this one. I actually think his perceived value is quite a bit lower than 26. Maybe I'm off here, but I feel like this is a guy that people are maybe a little bit indifferent about because he had that one explosive game. It's been kind of and there's so many receivers there. I don't think there is like a lockstep, like people are like, oh yeah, Jayden Reed to the moon, anything like that. So I think there's maybe even a suppressed value that you can get little slight discounts to where the upside is. So I love this one.
Let's go now to our wide receiver sells. Welsh, start us off.
We are going to Colts Michael Pittman. But look, he has moved quite a bit down. He was like 31 or 32 in the week 3 ranks. And I hate to tell you, it's not going to get much better. Current team yards percentage is at 15%. Last year, 31%. He had a 31% target share last season, which is down to 27%, and a drop from 31% to 23% in air yard share. He was also an over 35% first read guy. It's down to about 30%. These numbers don't have to be the ones that scream to get out. But my friends, this is about Anthony Richardson. Richardson currently has the league's worst completion percentage of any quarterback that has more than 1%. And one of the reasons I want to bring this up too is like a lot of those numbers with Michael Pittman, like they're not good, or, you know, the outlining stuff like the first read percentage and target shares, like those can change. Those, like the Tyreek Hill conversation, those can be outliers that can adjust. The problem is just, I'm concerned if Anthony Richardson is going to be capable of doing that. Outside of having the worst completion percentage, Fantasy Points data has a stat called ACC percentage, which represents like the throws a quarterback gets to the pass catcher, like on the numbers, strides, essentially good throws. Richardson is 35th in the league at just 42%. Lastly, Richardson ranks 41st out of 42 quarterbacks in adjusted completion percentage at just 59%. So I already told you he had the worst completion percentage in football. Adjusted, it's the second worst. By the way, Bryce Young has a better adjusted completion percentage than Anthony Richardson. Can Anthony Richardson bounce back? Sure. It's a rough matchup this week. After that, things kind of lighten up. I'm not advocating to go and drop Anthony Richardson at this second. I would hold, especially as you're going into better weeks, and things might get better. We've seen bright shine pieces from Anthony Richardson. Oh, from my knee, 60 yards, boom. But he also makes boneheaded decisions. He does not look or play like a good quarterback right now. Everyone on Jayden Daniels last week. But guess what? High completion percentage, adjusted completion percentage, 8th best in the league. And what happened? You got to see him shine. This is one of the worst. So here's the bright side. Can only go up from here for Anthony Richardson, which in turn would help Michael Pittman. But I'm worried this is a situation where Michael Pittman was being valued in the teens, 18, 19, 20, right in there. He's now going into the mid 30s. I'm worried the upside is still in the 30 range. I don't know if I can be sold that Michael Pittman will outperform Jayden Reed rest of season. I'm not sure that can happen.
Erickson, what are you doing with Pittman? Because this is somebody I was very high on during draft season. And is 3 weeks long enough to decide it's time to take the L? I don't know, but it doesn't look great right now.
No, it doesn't look great. Basically, Pittman is doing what we all thought he was going to do last year when we knew he was going to have a rookie quarterback that was going to have potential issues as a passer. And I guess, I didn't take that enough into consideration when I was ranking him and drafting him this year, where I thought, oh, Richardson, maybe upgrade from Gardner Minshew, when it's like, no, this guy needs Gardner Minshew. He needs someone that can just get him the ball. And unfortunately, because he's working more on that short to intermediate level, he's not delivering the splash plays. Alec Pierce, at least, is delivering on his 1 to 2 targets every single week, whether it's for a touchdown, he's getting 40 yards. So Pittman, he's struggling to get to 40 yards on 8 targets, 7 targets. It's not even enough. So for me, especially this matchup this week, you can't start him against the Pittsburgh Steelers and Joey Porter Jr. So I think that if you can't sell him for anything, you got to hold him. And like Welsh said, the matchups do kind of ease up a little bit. Jacksonville, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Texans again. They need game script offensive shootouts. The last two environments for them have been dreadful. And the fact that the Colts are running are basically dead last in time of possession and plays per game. That's because their run defense can't get off the field. So teams are having the ball the entire time. Richardson can't get into any type of rhythm. So I do think that right now Pittman is a hold for me because I think it can only go but up, right? He can't continue to be this bad for a player that has shown what he's been able to do over the past 3 seasons. So, but for right now, again, if you can sell him to get a decent piece in return and kind of just like wipe your hands clean of this Colts passing game, I don't think it's going to burn you in the end. So even though
would you rather have rest of season, Reed or Pittman?
Reed. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's the type of thing. And by the way, I don't think Michael Pittman's bad. I don't think a lot of the things I said was bad. It's the offense. And it's when they have those better matchups, is that going to start to mean that they're going to open up Anthony Richardson? I'm not sure that's the best way to make him effective. Right now, what it looks like is short, intermediate stuff, run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, and hope later in the game you can set up a play action play, which goes to Pierce right now. And Josh Downs is a great target he likes. So a lot of this, and that's why Pittman might be more of the hold territory, because this is not about Pittman's game. This is about the team and the offense around him right now. But you can go get Jayden Reed for Michael Pittman. That's where I think we're still at. And that is finding those lower perceived receivers that have that upside, like a guy like Reed, to get out from Pittman right now. That's what I'm mainly focusing on, because I don't think Pittman's squashed. I think Anthony Richardson will find a baseline and not be the worst completion quarterback in the NFL. But I just don't know if that's going to get him back to old Michael Pittman value. So if you're able to utilize that by moving off, getting a Jayden Reed, there might be other options out there. I know, Rome Odunze would be like a kind of interesting one because he's been a big play option. I'm not sure you want to go that low, but I'm also not sure Rome Odunze and Michael Pittman are going to be that far off by the end of the year. Maybe he bounces back. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my idea of why I'm selling Pittman.
Erickson, what wide receiver are you selling?
Going after a guy who scored a touchdown in week 3, DeAndre Hopkins, wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans. Somehow, some way, Hopkins, despite playing basically 50% of the snaps, he led the team with 73 receiving yards. He had a touchdown, 6 catches on 7 targets, 21% target share. But like I said, he only ran a route on 50% of the dropbacks, which is the same as week 2. So I don't know if this is the Titans still nursing him back from this offseason, preseason knee injury that he suffered. Apparently, he should have gotten surgery, but then decided, no, I'm not going to do that. So you have a veteran player that is coming off a knee injury, coming off a big game where Calvin Ridley was essentially a ghost, but the first 2 weeks of the season, it was the total reversal. Calvin Ridley was the dominant receiver in this Titans passing game. So again, in this past matchup, Ridley 1 catch for 9 yards on 3 targets. But on the year, Ridley ranks 5th in the NFL in total air yards at 355. So I think coming off a big game for DeAndre Hopkins, any way I can not attach myself to this Will Levis Tennessee Titans passing attack, I'm going to take those opportunities. And maybe this is an opportunity where, Hopkins is the number 1 guy. It wasn't Calvin Ridley. Hopkins just needed a couple weeks to get healthy. Maybe that's the case. Or maybe it's just, hey, he's a receiver. He had a spiked week, and then he's going to go back to subpar production because he's on a snap share. He's playing less snaps than Tyler Boyd. He's playing as much snaps as part-time tight ends on the Tennessee Titans. So I just think that this production, specifically after this week, is so unsustainable, and I don't feel bad getting away from anybody attached to Will Levis. So I think you could potentially flip Hopkins for Ridley straight up, or use Hopkins as part of a piece to get something else, upgrade at running back or wide receiver.
Welsh, what do you think about DeAndre Hopkins right now?
I mean, if you could move Hopkins for Ridley straight up, absolutely. But I think the savvier line there is whatever you can do to be away from this Titan situation is probably what I'm looking to do. They are nursing, but also at the same point, like if we're trying to build him back up, he's an older receiver who has had this injury, that there's a recurring factor to it. Also, you've seen kind of like one receiver kind of dominate this offense, and you've got bad quarterback play. Like I think Calvin Ridley is the guy that's going to go. You might have some off weeks where Hopkins kind of shines a little bit, but I'm worried about the snap percentage overall in the season. I'm worried about the production. I'm worried about reoccurring injury. So if there is somebody out there that's like, oh, cool, he bounced back, I feel comfortable, I'm absolutely selling on Hopkins. I think a little bit of the worry, and maybe both of the guys we're talking about, is like what the cost looks like. Like what will someone really actually want to trade for Hopkins? Maybe at the end of the day, you just do it no matter what. But I am looking to actively sell Hopkins where I can.
Let's go to some buy, sell, or hold for wide receivers. We're going to have 3 trios here. We're going to start off with Diontae Johnson coming off a big game, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, and Tank Dell. Again, Diontae Johnson, JSN, and Tank Dell. Erickson, I'll start with you. Which one are you buying? Which one are you selling? Which one are you holding?
I'm going to hold Tank Dell because he still hasn't had his big game yet, so I'm not going to give up right away. With JSN and Diontae, I think the buy-sell depends on the price tag on the 2 players, where Diontae is coming off the massive game. Is everybody a believer now in your league that this is legit? Diontae Johnson's going to be a wide receiver 1. Adam Thielen is going to be out of the picture for a little bit. So it looks pretty good for Diontae, whereas JSN, we've had 3 games in this new offense. JSN had 1 monster game and then 2 duds. Meanwhile, Tyler Lockett is outproducing him in 2 of those games. So I think for me, it's going to be buying Diontae because I think that his stability long-term is better than JSN. I am worried that this Lockett Metcalf thing is it's going to parlay and rebound week to week. Who is the Seahawks receiver this week? Again, DK Metcalf's not going away, right? He's a staple in this Seahawks passing game. So if JSN at best can only be the wide receiver 2 on his team, where Diontae is the clear-cut wide receiver 1 attached to Andy Dalton, who has shown over the years that he can support fantasy weapons, I'm going to buy Diontae and I'm going to sell JSN based on that week 2 game because I think that you could still get a solid return for JSN because the JSN hive is strong. I was part of it. I was part of the JSN hive. I was trying to draft him everywhere. But based on what I've seen through 3 weeks, 2 bad games, 1 good game, yes, he's going to have spike weeks, especially this week against Detroit. But I think the stability every week, lock in, bank my 12 targets with Diontae. Maybe he scores, maybe he doesn't. But I think that's kind of where I want to push my chips in. Welsh, what about you? How do you kind of see this situation? You going to co-sign?
I'm 100% co-signing this. I think you absolutely nailed it. Diontae Johnson with Andy Dalton, it was a scream. We talked about that on the prop show. It was like Diontae Johnson's reception prop was 3.5. It had to move to 4.5, and he still crushed it. So I 100% buy that Diontae Johnson is back to relevance in what seemed like was going to be this lost offense completely. Like there was nothing to start. All anybody cared about was Jonathan Brooks coming back. So I buy him. I completely agree on Tank Dell. It's a firm hold. There's a little bit of an injury thing that was floating around there. I've never been quite as big of a JSN guy. There were some high hopes coming into this week that JSN was going to go absolutely ballistic, and it didn't happen. And I think, like you said, just to move away from this because I'm just co-signing with you, is like, it's just going to be week to week. Like Tyler Lockett's just not done. He's going to be annoying, and it's just going to take away from JSN on certain weeks. It doesn't take away from Metcalf. Metcalf is the clear number 1. There'll be weeks where JSN is awesome. There'll be weeks where Tyler Lockett takes away. Probably like the idea of selling him off of one of those 10 target games, but I am joining you in the buy, sell, hold on this crew.
I agree on JSN as the sell here. I think I might buy Tank Dell. I wonder if you can get him for even cheaper than maybe we would expect, just given how the start of the season has gone. And I have like no doubts about what he can be rest of season. And Diontae Johnson, like, it is still Andy Dalton. Like, I know it was a really, really superb week 3 from him and that offense. I don't want to just say like the Panthers are fixed now. I think the floor is certainly very high with Diontae Johnson, but to me, like, I almost see him more as a hold than a buy, whereas Tank Dell, like if that manager is 0-3 and they're panicking, I wonder if you can get him for really cheap.
I love that idea. Can I ask real quick? Let's throw Michael Pittman into this and just rank them. So how would you rank it, Erickson, with Diontae Johnson, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Tank Dell, and Michael Pittman? What's the rank?
I think Pittman's probably last, right? Just because he doesn't have the value from any type of production so far this year. Where what's his upside? Anthony Richardson just has to become a better quarterback. Is that going to happen this season? Where Tank Dell, you have, okay, what if Diggs or Collins goes down? Oh, boom, you have a wide receiver 1 with Tank Dell, no doubt about it. Diontae Johnson's already the wide receiver 1 on his team. JSN, he's already shown that he has a high weekly ceiling for what he did in week 2. And again, what if one of these injuries? The thing with Pittman is, let's say Josh Downs gets hurt. That doesn't change anything. His role stays the same. So there's no intrinsic upside with a guy like Pittman until the quarterback improves. And that's not a given. I know that we talked about some of the matchups upcoming, but for right now, I'm taking all these guys over Pittman.
Worm, do you agree that Pittman's at the bottom, or would you have him above anybody?
If he's above somebody, it's JSN. JSN is the lowest of those four in ECR right now. According to the consensus, Diontae, Johnston, Tank, Dell, and Pittman are all within like 4 spots of each other, and then JSN is like 5 or 6 spots lower than that. I think I'd probably rather have. It's week 3 is so tricky because it's enough that it's like, okay, this is like a real pattern now.
Totally.
But it's also still like
just not enough.
Quarter of the season. Like,
yeah, we
it's
need like 1 or 2 more.
Preseason for these guys. They don't play like in August. So it's enough to make it hard. I think I would probably have Pittman ahead of JSN by like a hair, but it's really close. He is a good name to include with these other 3. They're all kind of right in that range for me.
And maybe it's like a trade candidates. If people want some application to the guys we're talking about, if you can go get a Tank Dell or even a Diontae Johnson for a Michael Pittman, maybe that gives you guys some ideas of at least where we're at.
So Diontae Johnson does seem like a strong buy. You can use the trade analyzer at fantasypros.com/myplaybook or on the My Playbook app to instantly evaluate how any trade will affect your team for this week, the rest of the season, or even in Dynasty. Let's do another buy, sell, or hold. Odunze, Christian Watson, Christian Kirk. Welsh, we'll start with you here.
All right. I am going to buy Odunze, hold Christian Watson, and sell Christian Kirk. There was a part of me that might have put Odunze in the hold spot because obviously, like the big breakout game last week was Caleb Williams becoming somewhat efficient, throwing the ever living crap out of the ball. But then like Keenan Allen wasn't there, so you could think like, all right, so what is this going to be? But also Cole Kmet ended up having 10 catches, like 11 targets, and in my mind, that is that Keenan role, that safety net role. So what happened? Well, Odunze was the big play option in the red zone. Caleb Williams was looking for him. They did a lot of like low screen passes to DJ Moore, very Debo-esque with the 49ers, just to try to get him going because of whatever. There's no separation. Odunze seems to be somebody that Caleb is really comfortable with. And even though Keenan Allen is coming back, I think I don't buy him like having, a million catches, but I buy him being a guy that's going to have 5 or 6 catches per game. It could go deep. Maybe it's 7, 8 targets. We'll see what the catch rate looks like. So I'm into Odunze. Jordan Love is coming back. Christian Watson is still kind of iffy on, like how he's going to materialize with 4 wide receivers. But what we do know is he's the red zone option. So I still like Watson with Love coming back. It's not into Christian Kirk. I'm not into this Jaguars team. They look awful. They look atrocious. Trevor Lawrence looks bad. They're going to get Ingram back at some point. They got 2 running backs who are trying to get going. Brian Thomas is still that big feed option. Kirk is just fine. So maybe this is the wrong answer because you can't sell him for the best. And Odunze might be the sell that Erickson would want to go with because of what you can sell off of. But I'm just not interested in Christian Kirk. So like he is the sell because I don't see a scenario where I've talking myself into starting him over those 2, maybe over Watson, maybe in a full PPR, but probably not when Jordan Love is back. So that's why I just want out from Christian Kirk. So that's my buy, hold, sell.
Erickson, what do you think? Odunze, Christian Watson, Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I agree with Welsh on his point. So agreeing, co-signing, buy, sell, hold. Kirk, this was the week for him to be productive. And he was. Double-digit targets, a lot of receptions, some good yardage totals. Thanks, Christian Kirk. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You got to move him. So that's what I would do, even if it's a lateral move. This was again, I didn't want people to trade away Christian Kirk before this past week because I knew he was going to have a good game against the Bills defense. Welsh, do you remember what players that we were debating on the extra point? It was Christian Kirk it wasn't Juwan Jennings, was it? We were like, didn't we have a side?
It was.
It was Juwan Jennings? Oh,
I think it was. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Wasn't it a hair bet too? You have to shave your head now. I think that's what it was.
I shaved half my head.
I picked Juwan Jennings versus your Christian Kirk. Thank you for reminding me about that. I was dead in the water
before Monday night even happened.
Yeah, you were. It's still, Kirk was still solid, but yeah, dead in the water, 100%.
Oh, totally dead in the water. But
did you say you'd have to shave half your head? That's far worse than shaving your whole head.
No, we never agreed to it, but I was just hoping we would do a hair bet.
Oh, whew. My wife thanks you, Welsh, for us not agreeing to that. So, yeah, but I agree. Also. Kirk, you got to sell off the big, semi-big Monday night game where he was at least productive. Christian Watson, more to come with him and Jordan Love. And then Odunze. I get the potential tease to try to sell high on him because he's coming off a big game, but Keenan Allen didn't play. But he's also a rookie that was drafted inside the top 10. Like, he might just be this good. And so I don't want to move away from a player like that after he has a breakout game with his rookie quarterback. So that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, I want as much Odunze as I can get. He just before the season started, he checked every box of the guys that I like, that I expect to after a couple of slow weeks maybe to start the year, that I just think are going to take off in the second half. I have not seen anything to make me come off of that stance yet. So he's my favorite here for sure. Let's do one more buy, sell, or hold. Alec Pierce, Quentin Johnston, Andrei Iosivas. This is lower in the rankings, obviously, but I thought it was an interesting one. Alec Pierce, Quentin Johnston, Andrei Iosivas. Of those three, Erickson, who are you buying? Who are you selling? Who are you holding?
I'm going to hold Alec Pierce because he's good for a 50-yard bomb every single week, so it's going to hit my lineup. I sell Quentin Johnston because he can only catch so many wide open touchdowns before his luck runs out. Justin Herbert's dealing with an injury. Lat McConkey's the target leader so far, 3 weeks in. And then I'm going to buy Andrei Iosivas. Even when T. Higgins came back, he was still involved. Still running route on 77% of the dropbacks. Clearly the wide receiver 3 on a high-powered offense with a defense that cannot stop anybody. So especially as the season trickles on, T. Higgins is in a contract year. Let's say this is a lost year for the Bengals. Is he going to be putting his body out there? Oh no, my hamstring again. I can't play. Well, that means more opportunities for Iosivas, who I think has been pretty good through 3 weeks. So that's who I'm going to buy.
Alec Pierce, I believe, has led the Colts in receiving every game this season. Now we've already talked about with the Pittman side of things why maybe that's not the most important thing, but it's not nothing.
He fits Richardson better as the vertical threat because Richardson has a cannon rocket
plays
arm.
500.
And
500. Boom.
Yeah.
And Pierce is the vertical guy for the Colts offense.
Yeah, I used to love playing 500, man. That's a blast.
Play in the pool. Was there anything more elite than 500 in the pool? No.
Well, did you have the rule of like dead or alive, and you could or like mystery box stuff if you were the thrower?
No, I don't know that. No.
Oh, that game ruled. We'll have to play at the next team trip.
What was more elite in a pool? 500 or wrestling moves, like doing like DDT, like power bombs, or like the F5. What's more elite?
I just like the classic game of like pool basketball where you could like dunk and like just go hard. And
that is actually pretty good.
That was always super fun. All right, who's your buy, sell, and hold here, Welsh?
All right, I am going to, let's see, Iosivas I'm going to hold. I'm going to buy Quentin Johnston, and I'm going to sell Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce, falling along the lines of what we talked about before. It's great what he's doing, and they can play 500 with it, but it's only so long that it's going to continue to go. I think Josh Downs will get a little bit more involved. So I'm just not super interested in the receivers in that Colts offense right now. So that's a sell, and he still has that value. He's a guy that could disappear completely from that team when everyone's healthy and if they got efficient. Quentin Johnston, like, I don't know. I know Palmer's going to be coming back, but they seem to want to get him across the field. They seem to be targeting him. He's making some big plays. I'm kind of into it because everybody else is not. And Iosivas, like you said, I'm just holding. I think it's a solid offense where he's getting usage. Unfortunately, Higgins coming back. Gesicki's also getting involved. So I think there's a little bit of a limitation, but that offense breeds a player that I don't want to let go of. But I think more importantly, the one I feel like most confident about is probably selling Pierce. Like, that's great that this is his role. Those are not the type of players I want to start. Maybe in desperation, in bye weeks and I'm losing players and stuff like that. Sure. But that would be a sell if someone is buying. He's the leader and he's scoring touchdowns. I would buy that. I feel confident about that one.
Don't forget about our weekly trade live stream on our YouTube channel where you can come and ask your specific trade questions. We'll be with you every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. For those listening on the podcast, just go to youtube.com/fantasypros, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified of all of our weekly live streams. We will wrap up on that. For Welsh and Erickson, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you again next time.